The Golden Scale was the finest restaurant in New Seoul. It sat at the top of a glass tower that touched the clouds. From its windows, you could see the whole city below, shining like a million tiny stars. Rich humans came here. Powerful dragons came here. They ate food that cost more than most people earned in a month. They made deals that changed the lives of millions. Yuna had worked here for 3 years. She was 26 years old, with black hair tied back in a neat bun and eyes that saw everything. Other waitresses chatted with each other during slow moments. Yuna watched. She watched how people walked. She watched how they held their hands. She watched their eyes. Her mother had taught her this. The world speaks to you, her mother used to say. But most people are too busy talking to listen. Yuna listened. Tonight was special. The manager, a nervous man named Do-hwan, had called all the staff together that morning. His hand shook as he spoke. Lord Hyok is coming tonight, he said. Do you understand what this means? Lord Hyok, the bronze dragon. He controls half the shipping lanes in this sector. If he is happy, we become the most famous restaurant in the galaxy. If he is unhappy, Do-hwan did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Yuna knew about Lord Hyok. Everyone did. Dragons had come to Earth 50 years ago. They were ancient creatures from a distant part of the galaxy. They lived for thousands of years. They were huge, powerful, and very proud. Most of them looked down on humans the way humans look down on insects. But Lord Hyok was different. He believed in working with humans, not ruling over them. He was coming tonight to sign a trade agreement with human corporations. If the deal went through, human colonies would grow rich. Humans would finally be treated as equals in dragon space. Many dragons hated this idea. They thought humans should know their place. Yuna spent the day preparing. She polished glasses until they sparkled. She checked every table 3 times. She memorized the menu again, even though she already knew it perfectly. At 7 o'clock, Lord Hyok arrived. Yuna had seen dragons before. They sometimes came to the restaurant for business dinners. But she had never seen one like Lord Hyok. He was massive, at least 4 meters tall even when walking on all 4s. His scales were bronze, but they shimmered with gold when the light hit them. His eyes were the color of melted honey, ancient and wise. When he moved, the floor trembled slightly. He had only 2 guards with him. This surprised Yuna. A dragon of his importance should have had 20. I want to show trust, she heard him tell the nervous Do-hwan. Tonight is about friendship between our peoples. Too many guards sends the wrong message. Do-hwan bowed so low his forehead nearly touched the ground. Of course, my lord. Of course. Lord Hyok was led to the private dining room at the back of the restaurant. It had been specially built for dragon guests, with high ceilings and reinforced floors. His human business partners were already waiting there. 3 men in expensive suits. They stood up when the dragon entered, their faces a mix of fear and excitement. Yuna was assigned to serve the private room. This was an honor. Do-hwan had chosen her because she never made mistakes. She never spilled drinks. She never forgot orders. She was invisible when she needed to be and present when she was needed. She carried in the first course, a soup made from rare mushrooms that grew only on 1 moon in the outer colonies. She moved silently, placing bowls in front of each guest. Lord Hyok watched her with those ancient eyes. You move well, he said. His voice was deep, like thunder rolling across mountains. Thank you, my lord, Yuna replied, keeping her eyes down. She had learned that dragons respected humility. Most humans are clumsy around dragons. They shake. They sweat. You do not. I am just a waitress, my lord. My job is to serve, not to be afraid. The dragon made a sound that might have been a laugh. Interesting. Yuna returned to the main dining area. She had other tables to check, but her eyes kept moving to the private room. Something felt wrong. She could not explain it. It was like a cold wind on the back of her neck. She looked around the restaurant. Everything seemed normal. Guests eating. Waiters moving between tables. Soft music playing. Then she saw him, a new waiter. Young, maybe 30 years old. His name tag said Taiho. Yuna did not recognize him. This was strange. The restaurant had not hired anyone new in months. And tonight of all nights, they would not bring in someone untrained. She watched Taiho move. He carried a tray of drinks toward the private room. His steps were smooth. Too smooth. Most new waiters stumbled a little, unsure of themselves. This man walked like he owned the floor. His eyes never looked at the drinks he carried. They looked at the private room. At Lord Hyok, Yuna felt her heart beat faster. She moved closer, pretending to adjust the tablecloth. She watched Taiho's hands. They were steady. No shaking. His fingers were rough, with small scars. Not the hands of a waiter. The hands of someone who worked with weapons. When he turned, his vest shifted. Yuna saw something underneath. A shape that did not belong. Something hard and angular pressed against the fabric. A gun. Her blood went cold. She looked at the private room. Lord Hyok sat with his back to the main dining area. His two guards stood near the door, but they were watching the hallway, not the restaurant. They did not see Taiho. Yuna had seconds to decide. She could scream, but that might cause panic. Taiho might shoot immediately. She could run to the guards, but Taiho would see her. She could call the police, but they would never arrive in time. She was just a waitress. What could she do against a man with a gun? Then she remembered her mother's words. The world speaks to you, but you can speak back. Yuna grabbed a clean napkin from the nearest table. Her hands were shaking now, but she forced them to be still. She took a pen from her apron pocket. She wrote quickly, her handwriting small and neat. She had one chance. One moment. One napkin, and she would not waste it. Yuna folded the napkin carefully. Her fingers felt numb. Her heart pounded so hard she thought everyone in the restaurant must hear it. But her face stayed calm. 3 years of serving powerful guests had taught her how to hide her feelings. She picked up a pitcher of water from the service station. The water trembled slightly as she lifted it. She took a deep breath and made it stop. She could not show fear. Fear would make Taiho suspicious. Fear would get Lord Hyok killed. She walked toward the private room. Each step felt like a kilometer. She passed tables of guests who laughed and talked, unaware of the danger so close to them. She passed other waiters who smiled at her. She passed Taiho. Their eyes met for just a moment. His were cold and empty, like stones at the bottom of a frozen river. He looked at her the way a wolf looks at a rabbit. Not as a threat, just as something small and unimportant. Good, Yuna thought. Let him think I am nothing. She entered the private room. Lord Hyok was speaking to the businessmen about shipping routes and trade tariffs. His voice filled the room like warm honey. The human men leaned forward, eager to please him, eager to make this deal happen. More water, my lord? Yuna asked softly. Lord Hyok turned his massive head toward her. Up close, he was even more impressive. His scales caught the light from the chandelier above and scattered it into tiny rainbows. His teeth, when he opened his mouth, were as long as her forearm. Each one could bite through steel, but his eyes were not cruel. They were tired. Yuna saw something in them that surprised her. Loneliness. This ancient creature, powerful enough to destroy cities, looked lonely. Double quotes. Yes, he said. Thank you. Yuna approached his side of the table. She poured water into his glass with one hand. With the other, She placed the folded napkin beside his plate. Her fingers brushed against his scales. They were warm, like stones that had been sitting in the sun. She pressed the napkin into his palm, just slightly. A tiny movement. Anyone watching would think she was simply setting the napkin down. Lord Hyok's eyes flickered. He felt the paper. He felt the pressure of her fingers. Dragons were intelligent. They did not become powerful by being stupid. He looked at Yuna, really looked at her. Not as a servant, not as a lesser creature. He looked at her as one being looks at another when they share a secret. "Stay close," he rumbled quietly. So quietly that only she could hear. Yuna nodded once and stepped back. She moved to the corner of the room, near the service station. From there, she could see everything. The table, the door, Lord Hyok's guards, and Taiho, who had entered the main dining area and was now pretending to clean a table near the private room entrance. Lord Hyok unfolded the napkin beneath the table. His golden eyes moved across the words. His face did not change. His body did not tense. But Yuna saw his claws extend slightly, just a few centimeters. Sharp as swords. He knew. The dragon continued his conversation as if nothing had happened. "The shipping lanes through the outer reach have been dangerous lately," he said to the businessmen. "Pirates, rebels, but with this agreement, we can patrol together. Human ships and dragon ships, side by side." One of the businessmen nodded eagerly. "We have always dreamed of such cooperation, my lord." "Dreams are cheap," Lord Hyok replied. "Action is expensive, but worth it." Under the table, his tail moved slowly. It looked casual, like a cat's tail swishing lazily. But Yuna saw where it was going. Toward the left side of the room. Toward the door where Taiho stood. The dragon was preparing. Yuna looked at Taiho. The fake waiter had stopped pretending to clean. His hand moved toward his vest. Toward the gun hidden there. His eyes were fixed on Lord Hyok's back. Not yet, Yuna thought. Please, not yet, Dodd. She needed to buy time. She needed to distract him. But how? She was just a waitress. She had no weapons. She had no training. She had nothing but trays and napkins and water pitchers. Then she had an idea. She picked up an empty tray and walked toward the private room entrance. She moved slowly, casually, as if she was just doing her job. She hummed softly, a song her mother used to sing. Taiho's eyes shifted to her. Just for a second. Just long enough. "Excuse me," Yuna said sweetly. "Could you help me? I need to reach something on the top shelf." Taiho frowned. "I'm busy, please? It will only take a moment. The manager will be angry if I don't get it done." She could see the conflict in his eyes. He wanted to focus on his target, but refusing to help would look suspicious. A real waiter would help a colleague. "Fine," he growled. "Quick." He followed her toward the service station. Away from the door. Away from Lord Hyok. Behind them, the dragon moved. Lord Hyok stood slowly, as if stretching his legs. "Gentlemen," he said to the businessmen, "let us take a short break. My old bones need to move." The businessmen looked confused, but nodded. They stood up and walked toward the window to admire the view. Lord Hyok turned. His massive body now faced the main dining area. His eyes found Taiho instantly. The fake waiter was reaching up to a shelf, his back turned, helping Yuna. The dragon's guards noticed their master moving. They straightened up, alert. "My lord?" One of them asked. "We have an uninvited guest," Lord Hyok said calmly. "The young man by the service station. He carries a weapon." Everything happened very fast after that. Taiho heard the dragon's words. He spun around, his hand diving into his vest. He pulled out the gun, a sleek black weapon that hummed with deadly energy. A plasma pistol. designed to pierce dragon scales. But Lord Hyok was already moving, and Yuna was closer. She did not think. She did not plan. She simply acted. She swung the metal tray in her hands with all her strength. It crashed into Taiho's arm just as he raised the gun. The weapon fired, but the shot went wild, burning a hole in the ceiling instead of finding its target. Taiho screamed in rage. He swung his other hand at Yuna. The blow caught her shoulder and sent her spinning to the ground. Pain exploded through her body. But she had done it. She had bought the dragon one more second, and 1 second was all Lord Hyok needed. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Guests screamed and ran for the exits. Tables crashed to the floor. Glass shattered. But in the middle of it all, there was a stillness. A moment frozen in time. Yuna lay on the ground, pain shooting through her shoulder. She looked up and saw Lord Hyok move. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing she had ever seen. Dragons were large. People assumed this made them slow. They were wrong. Lord Hyok crossed the distance between himself and Taiho in less than a heartbeat. His massive body flowed like water, like silk, like smoke. His bronze scales caught the light and blazed like fire. His wings, folded against his back, snapped open for just a moment to give him balance. Taiho fired again. The plasma bolt screamed through the air, bright blue and deadly. It would have killed any human instantly. It should have at least wounded the dragon. But Lord Hyok twisted his body at the last moment. The bolt grazed his scales, leaving a black burn mark but not piercing through. He roared. The sound shook the walls. Windows cracked. Yuna felt it in her bones, in her teeth, in her very soul. The dragon's tail swept across the floor like a bronze whip. It caught Taiho's legs and pulled him out from under him. The assassin fell hard, his head bouncing off the marble floor. The gun flew from his hand and skidded across the room. Before Taiho could move, Lord Hyok's massive claw slammed down on his chest. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to pin him to the floor like an insect under a boot. "Do not move," the dragon said. His voice was calm now, but there was ice beneath it. Cold rage carefully controlled. "If you move, I will end you." Taiho struggled anyway. He twisted and kicked and tried to reach the gun that lay just a few meters away. His face was red with fury and fear. Lord Hyok pressed down harder. Taiho gasped as the air left his lungs. "I said, do not move." The dragon's guards rushed forward. They grabbed Taiho's arms and pulled them behind his back. One of them produced metal restraints and locked them around the assassin's wrists. Only then did Lord Hyok lift his claw. The dragon turned and looked at Yuna. She was still on the ground, holding her injured shoulder. Blood seeped between her fingers. Taiho's blow had been stronger than she thought. Lord Hyok moved toward her. Each step was gentle now, careful. He lowered his massive head until his golden eyes were level with hers. "You are hurt," he said. "I am fine, my lord." "You are bleeding." Yuna looked at her hand. It was covered in red. "Oh," she said. "I suppose I am." The dragon made a sound that was almost a laugh. Almost. "You humans. So fragile. So easy to break." He paused. "And so impossibly brave." One of the businessmen came running over. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his face was pale with shock. "My lord, are you injured? Shall we call for help? The police? A doctor?" "I am not injured," Lord Hyok said without taking his eyes off Yuna. "But this woman is. Get her medical attention immediately." "Of course. Of course." The businessman ran off, shouting orders at anyone who would listen. Lord Hyok continued to stare at Yuna. His ancient eyes seemed to look right through her, seeing things she could not imagine. "You saved my life," he said. I did my job. My lord, your job is to serve water and bring food. Your job is not to stop assassins. Yuna tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace of pain. The napkin was already in my hand. It seemed wasteful not to use it. This time the dragon did laugh. A deep rumbling sound that made the floor vibrate. Wasteful, yes. Humans hate waste. He shook his great head slowly. You knew he had a weapon. You knew he was going to kill me. And instead of running away, you walked toward the danger. Why? Yuna thought about the question. It was a good question. A reasonable question. Why had she done it? She could have escaped through the kitchen. She could have hidden under a table. She could have done nothing and blamed the restaurant's security for failing. But she had not done any of those things. Because it was the right thing to do, she said finally. You came here in peace. You came here to make things better for both our peoples. Letting you die would have been wrong. Lord High-Hawk was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than before. I have lived for 3,000 years, he said. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched stars die. I have met millions of beings from hundreds of worlds. And in all that time, I can count on one claw the number of times someone has risked their life to save mine without expecting anything in return. He lowered his head even more, until his snout was almost touching Yuna's forehead. Thank you, he said. Thank you, Yuna. She blinked in surprise. You know my name? I read your name tag when you first served me soup. I remember everything. His eyes twinkled with ancient humor. That is the advantage of being old. Medical staff arrived then, rushing through the damaged restaurant with stretchers and equipment. They gently helped Yuna onto a stretcher and began treating her wound as they carried her away. She looked back at Lord High-Hawk. The dragon stood in the middle of the ruined dining room, surrounded by broken glass and overturned tables. His bronze scales were scratched and burned in places. But he stood tall and proud, like a king surveying his kingdom. He raised one massive claw and waved to her. Yuna smiled and waved back with her uninjured arm. She did not know it yet, but her life had just changed forever. The napkin she had written had set in motion events that would reshape the relationship between humans and dragons for generations to come. But that was still in the future. For now, all she wanted was some painkillers and a good night's sleep. 3 days passed. Yuna spent them in a hospital room that was far too nice for a simple waitress. The bed was soft and adjusted itself to her body. The windows showed a beautiful view of the city. Fresh flowers arrived every morning, though no card ever came with them. Her shoulder was healing well. The doctors said she was lucky. A few centimeters to the left and the blow would have broken her collarbone. Instead, she had only deep bruising and some torn muscle. She would be fine in a few weeks. On the 4th day, she had visitors. 2 dragons entered her hospital room. They were smaller than Lord High-Hawk, with scales of deep blue and silver. They wore official uniforms decorated with medals and symbols she did not recognize. Behind them came 4 human men in dark suits with serious faces. Yuna? One of the dragons asked. His voice was sharp and formal. Yes? We are investigators from the Dragon Council. We need to ask you some questions about the attack on Lord High-Hawk. Yuna sat up in bed, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. Of course. I will help however I can. The interrogation lasted 3 hours. They asked her everything. How had she noticed Taiho? What made her suspicious? Why had she decided to warn Lord High-Hawk instead of running? Had anyone paid her? Had she met the assassin before? Yuna answered every question honestly. She had nothing to hide. The investigators took notes. They recorded her voice. They analyzed her face for signs of lying. When they finally finished, The blue dragon nodded slowly. "Your story matches the evidence," he said, "and Lord Hyok's own account. We believe you." "Thank you," Yuna said. "Can you tell me what happened? Who was that man? Why did he want to kill Lord Hyok?" The dragons exchanged glances. For a moment, Yuna thought they would refuse to answer. Then the silver dragon spoke. "His name is Taiho. He was a mercenary. Someone paid him to kill Lord Hyok and stop the trade agreement." "Who paid him?" Another long pause. "The Crimson Fang." Yuna had heard of the Crimson Fang. Everyone had. They were a group of dragons who hated humans. They believed dragons were the supreme species in the galaxy, and that all other races should serve them as slaves. They had opposed the peace between dragons and humans from the very beginning. They hired a human to kill a dragon who wanted peace with humans, Yuna said slowly. "That is twisted," the blue dragon finished. "Yes, they wanted to blame humans for the assassination. They wanted to destroy the alliance before it could begin. They almost succeeded." The silver dragon stepped closer to Yuna's bed. His eyes were softer than his partner's. "You stopped them," he said. "A human waitress with a napkin stopped a plan that took months to prepare. Do you understand how remarkable that is?" Yuna shook her head. "I just did what anyone would do." "No," the dragon said firmly. "You did what very few would do. Most beings, when faced with danger, think only of themselves. You thought of others. That is rare. That is valuable." After the investigators left, Yuna sat alone in her quiet room. She thought about what they had said. The Crimson Fang, a plot to destroy peace. And she, a nobody from a poor family, had ruined their plans. It felt unreal. Like a dream she might wake up from at any moment. The door opened again. This time, only one figure entered. Lord Hyok. The dragon had to bend low to fit through the hospital doorway. His bronze scales scraped against the frame. When he was inside, he folded himself carefully, trying to make his massive body as small as possible in the tiny room. "I apologize for the tight fit," he said. "Human buildings are not designed for dragons." Yuna almost laughed. "It is fine, my lord. Please, make yourself comfortable." There was nowhere for a dragon to sit, so Lord Hyok simply lay down on the floor. Even lying down, his head was level with Yuna's bed. "How is your shoulder?" he asked. "Better every day. The doctors say I will recover fully." "Good. That is good." The dragon was quiet for a moment. His golden eyes studied her face. "I came to thank you again, and to ask you a question." "You already thanked me, my lord. Many times through your flowers." Lord Hyok blinked. "You knew the flowers were from me. White roses with golden edges. The same color as your eyes." It was not difficult to guess. The dragon made a sound that might have been embarrassment. "I see. Well, yes, the flowers were from me. But that is not why I am here." He shifted his weight, and Yuna realized something strange. Lord Hyok, the most powerful dragon in the sector, looked nervous. "The trade agreement has been signed," he said. "Despite the attack, we moved forward. Humans and dragons will work together now. Real partnership. Real equality. That is wonderful news, my lord." "It is. It is. But it is not enough." Lord Hyok's eyes met hers. "The Crimson Fang is still out there. They will try again. And there are others like them. Dragons who hate humans. Humans who hate dragons. Fear and prejudice that have grown for generations." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I realized something that night," he continued. "When I read your napkin, when you hit that assassin with a serving tray, I realized that the future will not be built by politicians and businessmen. It will be built by ordinary people who choose courage over fear." Yuna did not know what to say. She simply listened. I want you to work for me, Lord Hyok said. Not as a servant. Not as a waitress. As an advisor. I want someone who sees what I cannot see. Someone who will tell me the truth even when it is uncomfortable. Someone who understands both humans and dragons. Yuna's mouth fell open. My lord, I am not qualified for such a position. I have no education. No training. I am just a waitress who saved my life with a napkin, Lord Hyok finished. Yes, that is exactly why I want you. The qualified people have had their chance. They have failed. Maybe it is time to try something different. He raised his massive head and looked at her with those ancient, wise, lonely eyes. Will you help me build a better future, Yuna? Will you help me prove that humans and dragons can be more than allies? That we can be friends? Yuna thought of her small apartment, her simple life, her mother's words about listening to the world. She thought of the napkin, the tray, the moment when she chose to act instead of run. She took a deep breath. Yes, she said. I will help you. 1 year had passed since the night at the Golden Scale. 1 year since a napkin changed everything. Yuna stood at the window of her new office, looking out at the stars. The office was on a space station that orbited Earth, a place where humans and dragons worked side by side. From here, she could see the blue curve of her home planet below and the endless darkness of space above. She was no longer wearing a waitress uniform. Her clothes were simple but elegant now, dark blue with silver trim. The colors of the Human Advisory Council, the organization that Lord Hyok had created with her help. The council had started small. Just Yuna and a few other humans who believed in the dream of true partnership between the species. But it had grown quickly. News of the napkin incident had spread across the galaxy. The story of a human waitress who saved a dragon lord captured imaginations everywhere. Suddenly, humans were not just servants or laborers or pets. They were heroes. They were equals. The door behind Yuna opened. She did not need to turn around to know who it was. She could feel the warmth of his presence, hear the soft scrape of scales against the floor. You are thinking again, Lord Hyok said. I can always tell when you are thinking. Your shoulders get tense. Yuna smiled and turned to face him. Even after a year, the sight of him still took her breath away. Not because he was frightening anymore, but because he was beautiful. His bronze scales glowed in the starlight. His golden eyes held wisdom and kindness. I was thinking about the ceremony tomorrow, she said. The anniversary celebration. Ah. Lord Hyok moved to stand beside her at the window. His massive body radiated heat like a furnace. Are you nervous? A little. There will be so many important people. Dragons from the Great Council. Human presidents and prime ministers. Everyone will be watching. They will be watching you, Lord Hyok corrected. You are the symbol of what we have built together. The human who proved that our species can be partners. Yuna shook her head. I did not prove anything. I just wrote on a napkin. You did far more than that. The dragon turned his great head to look at her. Do you know what the Crimson Fang calls you now? They call you the Death of Dreams. They say you single-handedly destroyed their hopes of human subjugation. That seems dramatic. Dragons are dramatic creatures. We do nothing small. Lord Hyok's eyes sparkled with humor. But they are right to fear you, not because you are strong or powerful, but because you showed the galaxy what humans truly are. And what are we? Lord Hyok was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft and thoughtful. When I was young, only a few hundred years old, I asked my father what made dragons great. He said it was our strength, our fire, our immortal lives. He said we were born to rule. The dragon paused, watching the stars wheel slowly past the window. I believed him for a long time. Thousands of years. I believed that power was everything. That the strong should command and the weak should obey. It was the natural order. What changed? Yuna asked. You did. Lord Hayok turned to face her fully. That night at the restaurant, I watched a small, fragile creature risk her life to save someone she did not know. Not for money. Not for power. Not for fame. Just because it was right. He lowered his head until they were eye to eye. In 3,000 years, I have never seen such courage. Not from dragons. Not from any species. Humans are small and weak and live such short lives. But you burn brighter than stars. You love fiercer than dragons. You hope harder than any creature in the galaxy. Yuna felt tears forming in her eyes. She blinked them away. That is what makes you great, Lord Hayok finished. Not strength. Not power. Heart. The next day, the ceremony was held in the grand hall of the space station. Thousands of beings attended. Humans and dragons sitting together in rows that stretched back as far as the eye could see. Yuna stood on the stage beside Lord Hayok. Her hands were shaking, but she kept them still. She had learned much in the past year. How to speak to crowds. How to negotiate with angry dragons. How to stand tall when she felt small. Lord Hayok spoke first. His voice filled the hall like rolling thunder. 1 year ago, I came to Earth to sign a trade agreement. It was supposed to be a simple business deal. Nothing more. He paused, letting the silence stretch. Instead, I found something far more valuable. I found proof that the future I dreamed of was possible. He gestured to Yuna. This woman saved my life with nothing but a napkin and her courage. She taught me that true strength is not measured in scales or fire or ancient years. It is measured in the choices we make when no one is watching, in the risks we take to protect others, in the hope we hold even when everything seems dark. Lord Hayok stepped back. It was Yuna's turn to speak. She looked out at the crowd. Thousands of faces, human and dragon, watching her, waiting. I am just a waitress, she began. Her voice was quiet at first, but it grew stronger with each word. I am not a hero. I am not special. I am just someone who saw something wrong and decided to do something about it. She paused. That is all any of us can do. See the wrong. Do something. It does not matter if you are big or small, strong or weak, dragon or human. What matters is that you try. She thought of her mother, of napkins and serving trays, of a cold night when she chose courage over fear. The future is not built by great heroes in ancient stories. It is built by ordinary people who refuse to look away, who refuse to stay silent, who refuse to give up. Yuna straightened her spine and lifted her chin. I am proof that one person can change the galaxy. And if I can do it, so can you. So can all of us, together. The hall exploded in applause. Dragons roared their approval. Humans cheered and clapped. The sound was deafening, overwhelming, beautiful. Lord Hayok leaned close to Yuna. Well spoken, he rumbled. Your mother would be proud. Yuna smiled through her tears. I know. Later that night, after the ceremony ended and the crowds went home, Yuna returned to her office. She sat at her desk and looked at the object she kept in a glass case on the wall. A napkin, folded and worn. The words still visible in faded ink. Listen. Fake waiter. Armed. Left. Side. 8 words that changed history. She touched the glass gently. Thank you, Mom, she whispered, for teaching me to listen, for teaching me to speak. Outside her window, the stars burned bright against the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Crimson Fangs still plotted. Old hatreds still simmered. The future was still uncertain, but Yuna was not afraid. She had a dragon by her side. She had hope in her heart. And she had proven, once and for all, what humans could do when they chose to be brave. The galaxy was watching, and humanity would not disappoint.